Hey guys, my name is Marcel Irnie with IrnieracingNews. Today we're talking about France returning to coal. That's right guys, the woke gave their best shot with running everyone on electricity, and it failed with power outages across France. More than 100,000 people in Paris lost power, and all at the same time the French president sent 100 generators to Ukraine, just before this. The French citizens complaining the blackout happened quickly, unexpectedly, and without prior notice. Neither the internet nor any network worked. Paris officials confirmed on Twitter that 125,000 households were affected at the height of the incident. Police forces in Paris were on high alert, and security status was high as well across, according to Reuters. Of course, Reuters is just a hired misinformation. The transformer's fault caused a break in the high voltage line. And so essentially everyone's using power, and where do you have and you don't have enough power being produced? Well, it's gonna just drop it. So we don't know the exact details of how that happened, but you know they're not gonna tell you exactly what you wanna know. The cut happened around 10 p.m. and power was restored around 1 a.m. And this is the winter. I've warned everybody about this. Many people have warned that people in Europe are going to freeze. And this is not just the once. In fact, they give warning that this is going to happen regularly. Around 100,000 households in central Paris, mostly in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 14th districts, were affected by the blackouts, which also cut off streetlights, phone, internet, everything. Now, regular power outages is the highlight of the day. Europe is going through the worst energy crisis amidst the Russia-Ukraine special operation, and French ministers have warned of possible power outages regularly in case of a gap between supply and demand, which they said would not last longer than 2 hours and be flagged in advance. Well, obviously it didn't happen with this power outage, the first one. In fact, they created an app to warn residents about exceeding your power. All at the same time, they're saying, oh, by 2030, the Agenda 2030, where everyone should be in electric cars, or is it 2050? But in 2030 is like, they're going to stop selling. So again, returning to coal. In fact, they just shut down the coal plants in France, for the woke, for their globalist attitudes. And this is what happens. In a worst case scenario, the risk of cuts would impact roughly 60% of the French population, but it would exclude critical infrastructure such as hospitals, police stations, or fire stations. An online station called ECOWATTS, so ECOWATT, has already been set up to inform the French citizens of future cuts and help them reduce their consumption. Some 10,000 households, or people with cell phones, have subscribed to this app, which sends out alerts in case of a problem. In the meantime, the government is also returning to coal for electricity's needs. A coal station at east of France, which had been shut down earlier this year thanks to the woke idiots, started up again on Monday. Perfect example of wokeism by the government, the globalists. Electric cars. Nobody understands that you got to charge your electric car and you need the coal to charge the electric car. So you're just moving your emissions from directly out of your car to directly out of the coal plants. And of course, what about the pipeline that was bombed, strategically bombed? I wonder if I can say this on SensorTube. I'll just have a gap, USA, to hurt Europe, Germany, all these countries that relied on that pipeline from Russia. They are being attacked by USA, NATO, globalists trying to, you take away our food, power, essentials to life, hard to get water, you freeze, then you're gonna ask the government for more help. That's just kind of, there's a system in place. I can't just paraphrase it exact, I'd have to look it up again. But if you take away our health, our food, our livelihood, and then the people are gonna be begging the government to help and save them, and that's one of the strategies, and that's what's happening. And why would you cut off the power? Why would you do all this? This is IrnieracingNews, December 11th. Thanks for watching. Yeah.
They are being asked to turn up their thermostats to 78 degrees or higher. They're being asked to avoid using dishwashers and other large appliances and to hold off on charging their electric vehicles. The contrast could not be more clear of how out of touch this legislature has become. We are in a building where we can turn down the thermostat, and we'll ask to turn down the thermostat. And if the power goes out, which it did in the past, there are natural gas generators to back up this building.
And then there's going to be minimal amounts of power, minimal amounts of food. And that way they can control you by feeding you just a little bit that you need to survive.
Why, as the Dutch government, a guy called Rutte, the Prime Minister, completely owned by the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, why has he just announced that the Netherlands, the second biggest exporter of food in the world, is targeting farmers to destroy them and get them off the land, which is where all these farming protests in the Netherlands have come from? At a time of food shortages and supply chain problems, you are targeting the second biggest exporter of food in the bloody world to destroy its farming base? Why are you doing that? If people depend on you for what's left of the food, you control them. Where food is abundant and cheap, you do not control them. Where energy is cheap and abundant, you do not control them. Scarcity equals dependency equals control. And that's why they're targeting the food chain, they're targeting the energy supply, they're targeting everything.
So let's talk about survival and on the food system and on the electrical grid. And there's a kitty cat coming to say hello. What we all really need to survive is we need a strong local food system. And we have my buddy's onions and so forth and so forth. What do we have in here? Some cucumbers. Cucumbers, oh yeah. And broccoli, oh, scrumptious. And melons. Whatever melons these are, I'm not sure. Ooh, these look kind of like little mini watermelons. Oh, here's watermelons. Oh yeah, and carrots hiding below. You can see the carrot. The world of humanity, there's a certain section of the population has just gone stupid.
The president thinks that there is an extremist threat to our democracy. The president has been clear as he can be on that particular piece when we talk about a democracy, when we talk about our freedoms. The way that he sees it is the MAGA Republicans are the most energized part of the Republican Party. This is an extreme threat to our democracy, to our freedom, to our rights.
Let's force electric vehicles. Let's force the farmers off their land in the Netherlands so we can take their land and limit everyone's resources and get everybody on the teat of the little government teat where you can just suckle enough milk. We're just getting played, everybody. We're all getting played. Anyways, let's check out some footage.
We have an energy crisis in California. Californians are facing an unreliable electricity grid. Californians are paying for more in energy costs, and they're getting less in power. And while this budget funds the governor's political agenda, that agenda may not keep the lights on. The irony should not be lost on this legislature. Yesterday, this legislative body jammed through a bill to limit much-needed domestic energy production in our state. Today, we are debating a budget that excludes funding for carbon capture technology for oil production and puts more and more restrictions on reliable and affordable energy. And what do Californians have to face heading into this weekend? They are being asked to turn up their thermostats to 78 degrees or higher. They're being asked to avoid using dishwashers and other large appliances and to hold off on charging their electric vehicles. All during the times of 4 to 9. And the contrast could not be more clear of how out of touch this legislature has become. We are in a building where we can turn down the thermostat, and we'll ask to turn down the thermostat. And if the power goes out, which it did in the past, there are natural gas generators to back up this building. But this legislative body is willing to pass a budget and policies that will place more burdens on Californians who are being asked to sacrifice their well-being because of this governor's political desire.
The peak load for electricity is currently projected to exceed 48,000 megawatts on Monday, the highest of the year. So here comes the power grid strain, guys. Just an idea. And at the same time, California won't use their own oil and gas industry. It's just like Canada's Trudeau. We have tons of oil and gas that we could be self-sufficient in Canada, but no, we're not allowed to use our own resources and become a self-sustaining country like Russia. Instead, we're reliant on everybody else, and we have to ship in all our food and use oil in different capacities. And so California, the funny thing is California is actually getting power from us, from our hydro grids. Where are we living? What is this planet?